You did the hoorah thing. Okay, so I will watch for, should be there. Where'd it go? It says we're live. Oh well, pretend like we're live if we're not.
Trust that we're live, yes.
Whatever. Okay, welcome, Battle Buddies. So tonight we have a new special guest. We've been pretty good as far as getting new special guests here. We've got quite the agenda. I've got my schedule booked out through the 20th of April, so that's pretty good instead of trying to figure it out 2 seconds before we go live. So we have Lana on here this evening with us, and we're going to talk about the most important thing of transition, your head. And I'll let her introduce herself. So I want to let everybody but Lana introduce themselves immediately so we can kind of just like jump on into her area of expertise. So I would say ladies first. Zach, I know how you identify when you get on these programs, so we'll let you go. Ladies first.
Week in, week out with you.
Okay, so everybody knows Zach, that's good. Sarah, truly ladies first, if you don't mind introducing yourself.
Yep. Hi, Sarah Farstead from South Dakota. I was in the Army for 11 years, one tour through Iraq, active duty for 4 years, and now I'm an operations manager at Worth Electronics in South Dakota.
Pete?
Your old pal, Pete Laval, resume resource for the group. Glad to be with you. 23 years Air Force, did about 2.5 years over in the sandbox, 6 months over in Somalia, goofing around, and now I'm here.
Housekeeping. Click the invite button. No Blue Falcons allowed in Battle Buddies. If you don't know what Blue Falcon is, Google it. Just don't do it at home in front of your kids. You don't know what's going to pop up. So, Lana, if you don't mind introducing yourself and letting everybody know your background and your expertise and what you do for a living. And then we're just going to have an open discussion this evening, a real discussion, a no bullshit kind of discussion where we're just going to be raw and real. So if your feelings are likely to get hurt, this is your disclaimer, just disconnect right now. So Lana, do your thing, please.
Thank you so much for having me, everyone. I'm Lana Spizo. I was a little over 9 years in the Army, an intelligence officer. And my exit plan out of the military was getting into the consultant world. Prior to the Army, I did have experience in the mental health world. So what I do now is I'm an executive coach, and I help leaders harness their natural power and authenticity so that they can motivate and inspire their teams to reach peak performance and experience a level of self-awareness that they've never achieved. And so what that means, we're really looking at mindset here, right? There's fixed mindsets, there's growth mindset. We're really going to focus on the growth mindset tonight. And we have an amazing group of people here on the panel with me. I'm really excited to do this. And thank you so much for having me on. I'm super excited to do this. So
Absolutely. So, you know, we've talked on the phone a couple times about some of the stuff we wanted to cover on here. And I know one of the things that seems to dissipate from our vets is, you know, I call it the angry beard grunt style t-shirt wearing guy that talks about their beard oil and MOA on rifles that they can't outshoot anyways, and all of this nonsense of whiskey and bad decisions, you know. And one of the things that I've seen happen often with vets is so often, so many of us go into the military early on and we're handed a job, we're handed some orders, we go and do a thing, and then we go and do the next thing, and we become real qualified at things, we're real adaptable at things, and it's often misunderstood out in the private sector. But the first time a lot of the vets here know, they take it the wrong way, in my opinion, and you know, then the self-doubt starts kind of like encapsulating their brain, and it becomes an impermeable type of thing, right? Do you mind kind of touching on some of that stuff right there?
Right. So, you know, that's where the self-sabotage comes in, right? I'm not good enough for this position. It's never going to work. you know, the joy thief of comparison of the people to your left and your right who have been doing this for so long. You know, what makes me, coming from a military background, you know, transitioning into this civilian world, what gives me the right to serve in this position and work with these people and lead these people when I really don't know what I'm supposed to be doing, right? But you do. It's, the parallel is so similar. You know, what we learn in the military is we learn accountability, we learn responsibility, we learn absolutely, you know, personal integrity, behavioral integrity, do what you say you're going to do, right? And when it comes to, you know, transitioning in and that doubt and that, you know, I don't belong here, you have to like sit back and remember and pull from your strengths, right? You've done this before. Look at all the different jobs that you've had in the military. You're thrown into a new position every few years, whether you're ready for it or not, right? You get that promotion and you figure it out because you fall back on your strengths, right? And you go back to your personal core values of what is most important to you. And a lot of times what happens when you come out of the military and you transition into a job, you are looking at, you know, do I have what it takes? And a lot of times when you don't take that time to do that planning, that exit plan, you take that first position, you take that first job. But there is a process where you can kind of sit back and look at your skills assessment, where you're at, right? What can I do? What have I done? Where does this translate into civilian world? And then looking at where you want to be, like, what do you really want to do, right? And then as far as keeping that mindset, it's that growth mindset and keeping that strengths base where you're pulling out what you can do, right? So you're going back to this, the growth mindset of, I got this, you know, what are you doing in the background to get everything ready? You know, what type of HR resource, like human resources do you have? Are you getting yourself prepared on the, you know, the resume side, all that kind of stuff? You know, take care of your personal stuff. So when it comes time to go into that position, into that job, you've got all that stuff, you can check all the boxes and you're ready for that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that comes down to planning too. I mean, if you start your day in a funk because you don't have a plan, and if you do a plan, by noon your day is going to be 100% turned around, I believe.
Yeah. Right.
You need a plan, period.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of guys get stuck on, how do I make a plan? You know, I can see myself being there.
It's something that I worked through and with the VA. I mean, that's some of their psychologists and psychiatrists work through. It's like, okay, what do you want to do tomorrow? And you sit there with a piece of paper and it's like, okay, I want to be up by 8 o'clock. Okay, what do you want to do then? Well, I want to start job seeking. Okay, well, do you want to eat breakfast? What do you want to do in between there? Break your day out in these 15-minute increments. And like, it seemed incredibly stupid at the time, but it makes sense. It really does, to have that plan in place for the next day of the week, whatever it is.
Well, it's backup planning, right? At the end of the day, that's what it is. You're looking at, you know, here's where I want to get to. Here's the end state. What am I going to do? You know, all the hours leading up to it, or all the days leading up to it, or all the weeks and months leading up to it. Again, it is planning. And it's a very simple process as long as you break it down in steps and as long as you have the right resources. And Chuck, you have an amazing bank of resources here that can help our soldiers and airmen and, you know, everyone to kind of move forward and get through this and be prepared for that. It's taking that first step and it's dipping your toe in the water. It's so uncomfortable to ask for help. And I think part of that is, you know, getting on and saying, I've got to ask for help and take advantage of these resources.
And for those of you who are afraid to ask for help, just understand that we want to be helpful. That's our mission. And you're not letting us fulfill that. So start asking.
Yeah, I was on a call last week with the military hire guys, and when I explained what Battle Buddies was, I told them it's an open source Facebook page for veterans and getting them back to employment. Because if you take a look at what we do, you know, we're really good at being like a proxy, not necessarily doing the work for everybody, but getting them to the right place with the best resources that we have. So, you know, I see it all the time. I get a lot of interesting messages, I guess is a good way to put it. Typically they're favorable, and then some aren't, whatever. I handle those one off. Don't really care, whatever. But you know, it's like when somebody reaches out and they're like, dude, get me a job. It's like, get me a job. It's like you getting a job is a full-time job, and I have a job, so I can't do, you know, 7 jobs. I'm pretty good with the 6 I have right now. And,
Right.
you know, it's like, have you seen any of the videos? I mean, people, you know, I start off the show with, you know, make sure you invite some people, but you know what is probably more important is make sure you check out the files section. We've got hundreds of resources in there. Make sure you check out the announcement section. All of these broadcasts are on there. I've been putting this stuff up on a podcast. This will be on a podcast. It's on Podbean. I really don't know what Podbean is, but I got a bill again for this week. So this goes out on Podbean. It goes out on YouTube. So even if you're not on Facebook, or, you know, I guess it's for guys with like gray beards and shit, Facebook these days, it's for old people, right? So YouTube's not for old people. I deal with Silicon Valley people all the time. Send them to YouTube. It doesn't matter. Get the information to your friends, because, you know, it gets really tiresome when we find out that our core, our group of people, our brothers and sisters are suffering with these jobs that they hate, that they're not getting paid properly, and they're not being utilized. I mean, somebody told me that the average NCO in the Army goes through about $500,000 worth of training in their life. I don't know if that's true or not. That was on the Navy SEAL side, on the Special Forces side. So it's probably what, if you're Chuck Norris, probably $1 million. If you're regular NCO, it's probably a couple $100,000, something like that. But the point is that a lot of 20-year-olds are given a lot of responsibilities with a large P&L to manage. And they have guys like me from the middle of Minnesota who didn't graduate the top of their class, that really didn't have anything else to do in their life other than go serve their country, get a paycheck, because my mom and dad were like, it's time for you to go. And then we do what we do, right? So it's not like I was thinking if I should pick Harvard or Yale. It was, do I want to be smart and go in the Air Force, or be a real man and be in the Army? And obviously I chose the Army, Pete. But
you compliment and insult in the same sentence.
You're welcome. My grandpa was a badass Air Force guy. That's why I can't really, you know, degrade it too much. But, you know, we become these things, these amazing guys, you know. It's like, I'm a hoorah Marine, you know. I piss whiskey in the morning because I'm that much of a badass, and I did PT drunk 90% of the time. And, you know, I was throwing up at the end of every run. But now some lady in HR that you never met tells you, no, you're not qualified because you forgot something on your resume, and you get butt hurt and your feelings are hurt, and all of a sudden you're full of self-doubt. It doesn't make sense that this once upon a time hoorah warrior is now rolling around in the corner crying. So, you know, so here's a question, Lana. You deal with executives, typically speaking, right? And they're about the same as everybody else, but what are those few little things that differentiate them to become that next level person within organizations that you see from your perspective? Or, oh, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. So what it really boils down to is consistency, right? You know, you can look at an elite unit, right? And it's about being good across the board, not being great at one thing and not great in other things. It's about being consistent. And as far as a good executive, a great executive, they're great communicators. They are, you know, they're 100% transparent where they can be, and they have compassion for people. And a lot of times it's hard to be that person and learn that boundary when you've got so many other things going on, right? A lot of the work that I do is really, the first part is, we identify your mindset. We look at, the clarity on desires and goals, right? What are the different cycles? Everyone gets in their own cycle, right? It's their own sabotage cycle. I'm not good enough. I can't do this. I'm going to fail. And failure is, it's fear. Fear is the most paralyzing element when you're in leadership. It can really sabotage you, right? But what we're taught in the military, we're taught, just keep moving forward. We have contingency plans for a reason. It's the same thing in business. You bring that to business, you put contingency plans in place. So when the first one, goes to hell, you can go and pick up on number 2 and number 3, whatever that's going to be. You can guarantee it's never going to work. It's never going to work to plan, right? So that you have those. And, again, the other piece of that is, what are your core values, right? An executive who is in a position who, has these certain core values of, I want to be, not only a good boss for my people, I want to create a great culture. I want to be a good dad. I want to be a good provider for my family. They've got all these things, crazy things going around in their mind. But, when you leave home and go into work, you've got to be able to separate that and bring that over, right? And focus on the work piece. And as far as that piece for executives in work, it's about aligning your personal core values, the work mission, the culture, and aligning all of that together so you can have a safe place at work for your people, right? You want people to be innovative. You want people to be creative. You don't want to create all these robots. You want creativity, and innovation is going to 100% produce growth for a business. It's going to increase productivity. It's going to allow your people to, create these elite teams. So as far as the executive piece goes, it falls down to the directors, the managers and the frontline leaders. I work with all different levels, and it's the same on each level, but it's just a different level of authority. But the process is still the same, and everyone has to be aligned, and everyone has to be working towards the same goal in order for the culture to build the right way. If the executive has one dream, one vision, one mission, and these subordinates underneath aren't able to see and capture what that is, it's not going to work. It's going to it's going to fall apart, right?
Sarah. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I kind of had a question for Lana along those lines, because for any service member who's ever served in a leadership position where you've truly been embedded in the leadership role, it's a mindset, and it drives your character as a leader. Honestly, it's been about 7 years working the militaristic leadership style out of me at my current job. And I've been there for 10 years. And that's feedback that I've gotten from my boss, from my colleagues. So, how do we even start with that kind of a mindset switch? Because if people aren't under contract, if you piss them off, they can leave. They're not under contract to do what you say. A lot of us are used to, especially if you've been downrange, you have a much more get it done, drive hard. Sometimes how do you start to become the, I would say, kinder, gentler leader in today's society when you're used to that military leadership style?
Right. I'll even say, for myself, when I transitioned over, I was, have to get it done, get it done, get it done, get it done. I don't need to explain to you, here is the end state. Get it done. I'm not micromanaging you. And it's different in the civilian world because it's not a volunteer workforce, right? Or it is
a volunteer. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. It is a volunteer workforce because I'm coming here because I'm choosing this position and I'm choosing to commit to it. Right. And the piece is it's having that emotional intelligence, right? We learn that in the military, but we don't always execute that, right? It's about mission first, and it's having compassion, and it's learning how to really learn each of your people, and allow them to have their own autonomy and value the differences of their own diversity and what they bring to the table. You know, you can't expect someone who's not ready for that leadership role to throw them into a leadership position, because you're setting them up for failure. It's about setting them up for success, right? And it's not easy, but you have to give and take, and you have to be very self-aware. Some people you have to handle with kid gloves. Some people need a kick in the ass. They really do. Because some people just work, I work better that way. That's how I am. You know, some people are procrastinators, and it's really about, you know, are they really sure on what they have to do? And I truly believe it's asking those questions and having those feedback sessions as far as are they tracking on what they need to get done, right? Not just letting them go. But it is a very fine line, and it's very hard, because when you do transition over, you have to remember, like, you're working with very sensitive people sometimes, right?
Go.
Yeah, some very thin-skinned employees, and you gotta think before you speak, because you can't just knife hand them into doing what you want. Yeah.
It's about having empathy. You know, I always say you can be the smartest person in the room, and you can have all the degrees in the world, but if you can't emotionally connect, and I'm not talking about, you know, on emotional mushy level, I'm talking about just on a personal level. You know, ask these people about their families, you know, learn their first names of their kids. If you can't connect with them on just a regular conversational emotional level on that basis, you've already lost the room. So that's really what it's about. It's about connecting with your people. It's about learning, you know, what drives them and what motivates them and what inspires them. And all good leaders have to be very agile and able to, you know, switch those hats on a daily basis. It's not, you know, you can't wear one hat all day long. You're probably wearing 10 different hats, so you can really kind of be that chameleon in an authentic way with each of the people that you're working with. Does that help? Does that make sense?
Yeah, very good.
So
Good dialogue.
this is an interesting thing. I'm just curious about. So I've had a couple. Can I use the word female?
Yeah. Oh, you're not in front of me.
You're the Mr. Potato Head expert, Pete. Can I use female?
I still say guys to girls, so I mean.
I don't want to offend anybody these days, of course. So
common point of reference, so go with female.
Yeah. So here's a question. I know that I want to say it was like Beyonce time with the bossy woman thing going on. So that's interesting, because, like, so, you know, when you're in the Army, it's like, you didn't see this, go do it, right? It doesn't matter what gender it's coming from. But when you're, you know, out of uniform and you're in the civilian sector, it's a different world, right? And if I think about the female bosses I've had, Julie was the worst boss I've ever had in my life. And I'm going to throw her ass under the bus. Not going to use her last name, but she was the worst human I've ever worked for in my entire life. And I worked for some tyrants in the past, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully she watches this. And that's only been one Julie. And the next one was actually another woman named Camille. And what's strange is they came across as bossy, right? And I'm just curious. And when like, Julie was just an evil person. It didn't matter. We were at the Broadmoor in, you know, one of the nicest places for a big convention, and she couldn't even be nice there, right? But Camille, I'd been to her house for like Thanksgiving and stuff like that, and she was fine away from work, you know? So that's a curious thing when you've got the females in these executive places, to me, is how do you make sure with this whole gender shit that's going on right now that you've got good leadership regardless of gender? But oftentimes I know that women, Sarah, you probably dealt with this, is the bossy Army lady, right? I'm guessing. I mean, you talked about your 7-year transition there, but what are some of the things to be careful of for the female veterans, guys? I said it, female veterans in leadership. What types of things would you have for advice for them, Lana, to not fall down that path?
Honestly, I think it really boils down to being graceful and respectful when you take your seat at the table. So, the first thing, I always had a male staff in the military. And even as a female officer, I was working my butt off every single day to keep up with the men. It's just the way it was. And I earned my respect because, they knew that they had to come prepared every single day to work, right? And don't mistake my kindness for a lack of discipline or respect. It was almost a line I had to draw in the sand, but they knew because I was always honest. I never sugarcoated anything. And at the end of the day, I met them where they were at. I didn't hold higher standards to them that I knew I couldn't hold myself. But even transitioning over into the corporate side, it's, coming in with compassion and understanding, we're all at this table because we're all hand selected to produce results. It took me 40 something years to learn, unless I have a direct responsibility for the solution, I probably don't need to solicit my opinion and give it out there unless I'm asked for it, right? And a lot of times I feel that in executive roles, some women who, don't have that level of confidence feel like they need to be heard, and it comes across the wrong way. I can tell you myself, when I first transitioned into the executive world, I was the biggest bitch in the world. And it wasn't that I was a bitch. I just had high standards for people. But they were the same standards I held to myself. And I realized, stepping back after a few years, I realized, okay, you know what? We set ourselves up for disappointment when we set standards on other people, right? You have to let go of those expectations and just meet everyone where they're at. Deliver with grace and respect every single time, no matter what. And that right there should be reciprocated across the board.
Yeah, and I'd say pretty much ditto what Lana said. Exactly. It's a mix of the confidence, but then the empathy, because that empathy and the kindness takes the edge off being labeled a bitch, for lack of a better word. When you truly care about the people you work with. And that same old mantra, never expect your soldiers to do something you won't do. Sometimes you got to get in the dirt when it's a crappy task with your guys. A couple of years ago, I slept on the floor of my office for 3 nights because we were in the middle of a major warehouse renovation and we were falling apart at the seams and my team was running ragged. And so, yeah, me and the team leader, pretty much, we slept in the office for almost 3 days straight, trying to help the team get ahead. And to them, it wasn't just like, oh, you guys go ahead. I'm going to go home and sleep in my bed with my family. But no, we were in the trenches with them. And I think that goes a long way. Not all the time, because you lose your authority when you're always in the trenches with them. But when it sucks the most, don't be afraid to be the same person working late. Be the person bringing in extra coffee or ordering pizzas. Something that just says, I'm there with you in the suck right now.
And I think another, if I can add to that, is, just showing them that you care. They just know that you care. Anything else, like, that's it. I care where you're at. I care about your success, and I want to see you move forward. And you're showing them, even if you're just holding a flashlight. Okay, I know what I'm doing, but let me hold the flashlight so I can, shine some light on it. It's that simple. It's so simple, and we overcomplicate everything.
Yep.
Pete, you have to have some really good questions in your mind. You've got this look in your face. No?
I got to tell you something. The topic of leadership has been fascinating to me. I guess it's kind of a nerd kind of thing, but what you guys are talking about, Sarah, staying late and spending your night in the office, and the things that you're mentioning too, Lana, about getting down in the weeds with them. That is so leadership. I mean, it may seem to some people like, oh, I'm not doing that. I'm above that. That's so crack. If you want to purchase equity for pennies on the dollar with your people, get down in the weeds with them. This is awesome.
Yeah, I was watching a Netflix show yesterday. It's called Last Chance U Basketball Edition or something like that. I'm not a basketball guy. I'm waiting for the hockey one because I'm suddenly a hockey player, right, Zach? Yeah. And, you know, I found it really interesting that, you know, they did kind of the Marine Corps punishment where the one guy was complaining that everybody sucked. And so the coach was like, well, since everybody sucks, why don't you go stand under the basket and we'll all do laps. And the interesting thing about this guy was that he actually joined the team in running the laps. And he's like, well, if everybody sucks, that has to include me too, right? And, you know, that's the first time I've ever seen that. You know, when I've coached sports in the past, you can't torture an 11-year-old girl on a soccer field with that kind of stuff, or she's gonna, you know, you're gonna get some feedback or whatever. But, you know, even if I was coaching an adult league, that was something that I took that I was like, wow, I would actually implement that. And I really looked up to this guy. And now that was like the hook that got me on this show going forward here. So, you know, it's the thing that I've seen in the civilian, I've been lucky enough to have a couple of fantastic, one was a Marine Corps lieutenant colonel as a boss for 8 years when I worked at Sprint. Amazing guy. He'd roll up his sleeves when necessary, right? And the difference between a leader who will go out in the trenches with you and return fire versus that dude that sits in the fob, you know, wondering whatever, why didn't you do this? Is like that dirty manager that used to work for this guy and he would just do spreadsheets all day. And his whole team would suffer because, you know, they would mimic his behavior. That's it. Well, if this guy can sit on the computer all day and do nothing, obviously I can too. And it was pretty pathetic because I would literally beat his whole team in performance just by myself. And it's because, you know, I looked up to the guy that was leading me as shit. I can't have him outperform me. That would be pathetic. So I better do my deal too. We've kind of gotten off a track from the leadership, from the veteran transition mindset here. That was weird. My screen just flipped around. But I think,
raise my hand.
Oh, there you go, Zach. Jump in. And I was hoping you would say something of like what you see for challenges on the regular over at MacV.
Well, and so actually what I was going to ask Lana was, you know, from the other side of things, how would you, if people are having issues, and I know like the book Managing Your Manager is always super helpful, but if people are struggling on the lower end of things and having issues with leadership and going, you know, I don't know if this is the right job for me or anything else, what kind of recommendations would you give to somebody who may be struggling with that and going, you know, I could do it better, so to speak?
So let me just clarify, you're talking about the subordinate who's having the challenge with their boss, their leader.
Yeah, what would you recommend, just, you know, because for somebody who is coming out of the military, you know, like for myself, I was a sergeant. I had 16 guys I was in charge. That's middle management. And now I'm back to the bottom of the barrel, and that's not a fun place to be, because my mentality goes, I should probably be an office manager or something. You know, it's like, but I haven't gotten there in the civilian side. So now I need to kind of start over and go PFC private again and work my way back up. So when you're managing your manager, what are some things that you would recommend people do?
Right. So in the corporate world, we call that managing up, right? And it really boils down to getting your manager and having that one-on-one conversation and having feedback sessions. I don't know how many times I've worked with clients who are so afraid to speak up and talk with their boss and say, hey, listen, I'm having an issue here or there. But if you're not getting the right training, right? And I can tell you, if you've managed 16 people on a team, you know what you're doing. It's just a different level because you're coming into a situation where, again, it's a volunteer force, right? And the expectation is they're going to know exactly what the mission is, or, you know, the end state. And they don't always have that, because I don't want to say it's a more lax world, but it's just different, right? Because our standards are different, and our I want to get myself in trouble here, so
Go for it. This is Rod and I.
Yeah, just do it.
It's so when you come out of, you know, whether it's special operations or the Army, it doesn't matter, out of the military, you're like, I've got this, right? I know what I'm doing. And then you walk into this new position, and all of a sudden you're trying to be that same type of leader you were before, but it's not, you're not getting the respect of your people. You're not getting the feedback. You're not getting the productivity. Something's not working. And sometimes it takes like sitting down with that boss and saying, hey, you've been around, you know what's going on here. Like, help me out here. It's okay to ask for help, because at the end of the day, you were hand selected for this position. It's not like it was a lottery that you were just thrown into. You were selected for your background. You were selected for your experience. You were selected because you were responsible. You know, you might have not have had a multi-million-dollar P&L that you were managing, but you're still managing multi-million dollars of equipment. You have soldiers that have gone through how many millions of dollars worth of training, right? You've got the experience, you've got the education, you've got the knowledge to get there. You've got to, lean back on those strengths and say, okay, I need to put a plan together. And that's where you hold your superior accountable and say, hey, let's sit down and have a one-on-one. What do I need to do to get better? And if it's training, then find the resources. That's part of your manager's job, to find you the resources to get you what you need to get you up to par. You can't be afraid to ask for help. And that is the number one thing I would say. People are so afraid that they're going to, get pushed aside for that next promotion, or someone else is going to laterally fill their position because they didn't get there quick enough. And I can tell you, you can't teach heart. You have to have heart. And if you have the passion to do what you're doing, and you're authentic about it, and you care about your people, that's what matters. And your leaders are going to see that. And if you have the intentional fortitude to go back and say, you know what, I need help in this area, bring them a couple solutions. Here's what I want to do. Here's my courses of action. What do you think about this? Because if you're a solution oriented leader, and I know everyone comes out of the military is solution oriented, I would say 99%, right? There's a few that don't belong in the military, but we're all solution oriented. And if we bring solutions to our leadership, it's not like we're asking them to figure it out for us. We're saying, hey, I think we can do X, Y, or Z. Help me out here and help me find the right avenue.
So, Zach, I can tell you this. We've had a number of Army captains that had company command that transitioned out into the Army Fellowship Program. And it was really interesting watching their mindset at the beginning of, why would I take this job? I've got 112 people in my company that I'm running right now. I should be like a director of something, right? And these kids, I'm old enough to be their dad, that are like 28 years old, are completely convinced that they're overqualified to do that piece of shit thing that they're going to have to do. And then what's interesting is about day 60, when they realize that they're not hot shit and they don't know hardly anything, and then they start facing these things like Lana's pointing out of, what do you mean I can't do this? That's a captain bar right there, right? Go do that shit, private. That doesn't fly. So when they have to, discover that the intrinsic leadership pieces that they maybe lost through arrogance or whatever is kind of something that they have to reinstall. And Pete, how many times have we seen this? A half a dozen times for sure, right? At about the 5th, 6 months, they're like, oh my goodness, I'm glad that I took advantage of that program. And I realized that I wasn't quite ready to jump into the role that I thought I was, which would have ultimately led to failure. And that humbling experience after 3-4 years sounds like 5 to 7 is more reasonable from what Sarah's saying, of kind of purging some of those military habits from you and figuring out your new world. So, you might be in that situation yourself, but don't think that you're the first vet that's gone through this. I've seen this a number of times. I went through it myself. You get out as a staff sergeant and you think you're hot shit, 25 years old. I mean, who wouldn't want that guy, right, to be running their organization? I'm awesome.
Well,
At
and
20,
I'm going to start reading mission transition and like, this, going through the post-military career stuff. And I'm reading David Goggins' Can't Hurt Me right now. And like, I'm kind of excited to see what it is. Cause like, I mean, we got 4 days of taps and tams when you're getting out, and it's like, here's everything you need to know to go back to civilian life. You throw half of it away in the dumpster on the way back to barracks because you're tired of carrying gear. And then you get back here and go, wait, what? And like, everything it's like, you got to find your new tribe, your new people. You got to find a new job. How do you change your bank over from Navy Fed or whatever you're doing? I mean, like, and this is where people get stressed out. And then, you get into the statistics stuff, and it's stressful, but like, yeah, I don't have a rank on my collar anymore. I'm Joe Schmo again.
Right? Your identity's gone. You're a guy now.
Yeah.
You're a potato head. No gender.
I think at the end of the day, when you are ready to do that transition, again, I did my transition started 5 years before I got out. I knew what I wanted to do. We knew what we wanted to do, and we kind of planned that out. But it's about redefining your purpose, right? And finding a career that's going to be rewarding, providing purpose and satisfaction. Because if you don't have satisfaction, there's a love for war that you miss when you get out. It's that camaraderie with those people that no matter what, my left and my right is going to be there. At the end of the day, you walk through that door, you put those emotions aside, you put the differences aside, because you're depending on the person to your left and to your right, to be there for you. They're your lifeline. And different in the civilian world because it's kind of cutthroat. We all know this. And it's not always about, covering for your buddy. It's taking care of number one. And I think the most important piece is, taking that time. Don't just wait until you're on terminal leave. You have to take that time and really start planning and look at really what you want to do. Whether you're married or not, talk with your spouse or your partner and say, hey, what are we going to do? What does this look like for us? And kind of go in the direction of, what you guys are not going to like this because it's going to sound mushy, but
do it.
I'm going there. I'm really going there. We all have things that are put in our heart that we just can't stop thinking about. That is what we're meant to do in life. For me, I love executive coaching. I love working with people, and I love pushing people through their comfort zones. I'm really good at it. I'm great at holding people accountable, and I can get the person from where they're at and catapult them into that next level, right, of where they need to be. So if you're just gonna, trip down the road and get out in PCS, and all of a sudden you think that you're gonna trip into this amazing job without doing that background work and that planning, it's not gonna happen. You've got to figure out what your passion is in life. And there's so many resources out there that can help you with that piece. You got to narrow that down just a little bit because it's so broad. It's really, really broad.
I did it right when I got out. I grew up doing residential remodeling all the way up until I joined the Marine Corps combat engineer, more building, blowing stuff up, got out 4 years at Dunwoody, construction management. I did it for 4 years and I hated it. I hated what I was doing so bad. I didn't want to get out of bed most days, and it wasn't because of war stuff. It was because I couldn't stand the people I was with, the crabbiness, the long hours. And I went, enough's enough. I had a project manager at one of the fitness places here in Minnesota who's that they're national, and he told me I needed to tough out my symptoms from being blown up in Afghanistan. And I went, I don't ever want to be around anybody like this again. And I said, I want to go back to do what I love, and that was working with veterans and being around them again. And I renetworked myself, revamped I changed a construction resume into a veterans whatever, and it works. It's not easy. I took a $26,000 pay cut to do what I do now, and it was the best decision hands down that I ever made. And I mean, if somebody's transitioning, and again, if anybody's watching and you got somebody who is actively serving, whether they're just starting or ready to get out, again, bring them here to Battle Buddies, have them watch this stuff, because seriously, it's going to make a difference. I've got people at MEPS over here. I got people who are actively serving in California contacting me going, hey, I get out in 6 to 9 months. What do I do? That's what needs to happen. We got to get in front of these guys and girls so much earlier. And if they can come to see what we're doing here, all the better.
Yeah,
Hey, Lana, I remember the LinkedIn comment that you posted that I connected with you on. Do you mind wrapping it up with being comfortable with being uncomfortable? A little bit of that, and then we'll call it a wrap.
Yeah, I can. The biggest common denominator for anyone in the workforce or the military is that uncomfortable piece, that uncertainty, and that fear. And fear paralyzes you. It will absolutely paralyze you. The only thing to get rid of fear is action. Whether you're, taking a big giant leap forward or that little step. I'll tell you, even for myself, I've been told, you got to do more videos. You got to do more videos. I don't like doing videos. I can stand in front of 100 people. I can do little group sessions. I don't like doing videos. So you know what I did? I started doing videos because it was uncomfortable for me. And it does remove the fear, and it's being comfortable with that uncomfortable piece. It's no different in the military. Every single one of you that have served, that is watching, you guys all know, going to MEPS or going to reception, we don't know what the heck's going on. You just go in and you just do it and you figure it out. And once you put that fear aside and you say, I've got this, I'm going to do it. I'm just going to keep moving forward. No matter what, you've got to rely on your strengths and know that let those cards fall and don't think about, what that train crash in front of you is going to look like, because 9 times out of 10, that train crash never happens. It's an irrational fear that's swirling around in your head. You've got to stop the movie, sometimes sit down and eat the popcorn and just enjoy it.
Nice. That's a perfect place to stop. We are so lucky Sue's not here. We've been getting yelled at for 11 minutes, Pete.
I know.
Actually, we started a couple minutes earlier too, so it'd be more like 15 or 16.
I know.
So thanks for showing up, Lana. Really appreciate your input. I think that we'll have to have you back again, and we should do some intrinsic stuff, or kind of crack some minds open in some other areas, because we don't do enough of this kind of stuff where to get, you can read a book on how to network and write a resume and all that stuff, but unless the stuff that's between your ears is right, it's not going to make a difference at all. So appreciate you showing up this evening.
Well, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it, and I'd love to come back.
Cool. That's it, battle buddies. See you later.